Rink-wide Vancouver. Wadden and J-Pat here with you. We're presented by Bodog. Make a play at Canada's choice for free casino games, sports odds, and poker strategies as game one of the preseason in the books for the Canucks, a 3-2 overtime loss to the Calgary Flames. Now, we are going to break down just the game that we witnessed here in Vancouver, right. J-Pat. We'll reference the other game in Calgary in just a moment, but this is the game that we had our eyes on. And as I mentioned, the Canucks fall 3-2 in overtime in a game that... Well, it was a preseason game, and you could see that very early in the game, first, second period, a little sloppy, a little bit better there in the third, but very much a preseason affair.
Yeah, Canucks got rolled 4-0 in Calgary, so there you go. That was what happened at the Saddle Dome. Enough about that one. We're going to focus on the game that we saw. First of all, it was just great to be back in the rink and to have hockey. It was fun to be at Whistler over the weekend, Penticton before that. That's all the preamble, but there was a game played, and it gives us something to dig into, and we're back. Season 2 of rink-wide post games, and looking forward to this one. Looking forward to the season ahead, even preseason games. Lots to digest. Yeah, the Canucks fall 3-2 in overtime. I thought it was funny. Bruce Boudreau referenced after the game, he felt he had seen this last year with all the games where the Canucks dug themselves a hole and then battled back. And sure enough, that kind of was the script that this one followed. 2-0 going to the third period. And then the Canucks get both of their goals in the final frame. Vasily Podkolzin, probably the best Canuck.
Yeah.
Jack Rathbone in the conversation as well. I thought the goaltenders, I know the second Calgary goal banked in off Spencer Martin, and you hate to see that. I'm not even sure that qualifies as a bad goal. Just not
really smart move by Ben Jones.
Yeah, an unfortunate bounce. But whatever. I mean, it turns out in a close game, a bad bounce, and winds up in the net. Calgary wins at 3-2. Too many penalties for my liking, but maybe that's to be expected as well. First time out in the preseason. It's preseason for the officials as well, trying to keep a lid on things, crack it down. It wasn't a powder keg. There was the fight, but there was a lot of stick fouls, a lot of hooking, a lot of holding.
I liked what Garland said, and we'll hear from Conor Garland here in just a moment. But post game, he was talking about just how guys have to shake the summer hockey rust off them, right? And the referees are good on them to be able to get on top of that early and just get that guys in the mind frame to not be so many stick infractions, right?
Let's get to the big story, though, I think, and that is that the first look at Ilya Mikheyev, and it lasted all of 7 minutes and 31 seconds early in the second period, takes a high, hard hit from Nicholas Milosh. I don't think it was a dirty hit, but it looked at first glance like Milosh maybe got his gloves and his stick up into Mikheyev's chin, but you pointed out, and I think now that I've seen the replay a couple of times, sort of falls awkwardly, and you do wonder a little bit about the wrist maybe taking the brunt of that blow as he crashed into the boards. Whatever the case, second shift of the second period, and his night was done. No update. Bruce said after, hadn't talked to the doctors. That always makes me a little bit leery. That's coach speak, and you do wonder if he's going to be out of action here. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. It's just unfortunate. You want to see these new toys in action. He looked good at Whistler and in training camp, but his night ends 7 minutes and 31 seconds of ice time. He was on for the first Calgary goal, actually turned the puck over in the neutral zone, didn't have a shot on goal. And then the Canucks are down a forward, and a key forward, especially with all the penalty killing that they had to do. That's where you wanted to see, could this guy pay dividends early on as a penalty killer? And so they're without Ilya Mikheyev and now 11 forwards. And so a whole lot of mixing and matching and other guys getting opportunities to play on that line with Elias Pettersson and Andrei Kuzmenko. But, if you're Bruce Boudreau, you don't want to lose a player on the first night of the preseason, and I'm sure he would rather have had Mikheyev there in some of those situations to continue to evaluate what he has in that player.
Yeah, 7:31 of ice time for Mikheyev. Just had the one attempt on goal, missed shot for Ilya Mikheyev, but let's just hope that it isn't serious, because that would not be how you want to get your career started as a Vancouver Canuck for Ilya Mikheyev. But not only for that, for the Canucks, we've seen what slow starts can do to NHL teams, and you got to play catch up later on in the season. You're playing with fire at that point. Vasily Podkolzin was playing with fire himself. He was good on the ice tonight. I thought he was one of the most dominant forwards out there. 4 shots on goal, 7 attempts, had that nice goal as well. And the thing I liked about the goal was he deked the pants off of Rooney, and then just like a true power forward, so to speak, just sort of right through the 5-hole there of Dustin Wolf and gets the goal. I think the fans are expecting big things from Vasily Podkolzin this year, but I think they got big things from him in this first preseason game.
Yeah, 20 minutes and 40 seconds of ice time. Remember last year, early on, we had the Pods Watch and 12 minutes, 13 minutes, and people wanted to see more, and he had to earn it. Rookie getting his feet wet in the National Hockey League, over 20 minutes on night one of the preseason. And I'm with you. I thought his night got better as it went along.
Yeah.
Although low-key, maybe my favorite Vasily Podkolzin moment, and this guy scored, and maybe my favorite moment late in the first period.
Yeah.
Dennis Gilbert takes a run at him. And Pods just kind of flicked him away like a fly.
Yeah.
Like, we know he's a big, strong guy. He's young, but he's got man strength. And Dennis Gilbert found out the hard way. He just made it look so easy. Just kind of, get out of here. Get out of here.
That number 92. Don't want to mess with him if you're Gilbert. Take that number there. But you're absolutely right. He just dumped him like he was nothing.
Also had that chance on the backhand early in the second period when DeKaiser came down low and Myers was in front of the net.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, just missed, which is an interesting sequence because Myers is in front of the net and DeKaiser's in the corner. Who's back there? Yep. Anyway, yeah, he missed on that one. But I thought Vasily Podkolzin's game was probably tops amongst the forwards.
But, and it comes with a but.
Okay.
Who was in the penalty box when Calgary scored.
But what did you think of the penalty?
I thought he kind of just stuck his foot out there a little bit. I did. I thought there was a penalty. Again, on a night when everything was getting called.
Yeah.
If it was a night where there had been 2 power plays each way and the refs were letting them play, but I think you had to recognize, especially as the night went on. I mean, the final tally, Calgary had 8 power plays, scored on the overtime winner. So they go 1 for 8 with a man advantage. Canucks had 7 power plays and didn't score. And more to that is the Canucks only generated 9 shots on goal in 14 minutes of power play time.
It didn't feel like there was a whole lot of offense in this game entirely.
And
really.
I know it's not like PP1, Besser wasn't playing, Miller wasn't playing, Quinn Hughes wasn't playing. I actually thought the power play snapped it around and generated some looks, but ultimately, if you have 14 minutes of power play time and you only get 9 shots on goal, you want to be close to a shot a minute, I think. And it was the first night, so I'm not going to make too much of the officiating, but just in terms of game flow, I mean, it just felt like there was a whistle every 30 seconds. But
I think that's setting the tone, like Garland said, right?
No, I get it.
Yeah. High danger chances at 5-on-5, 7 all between both teams, and then the Flames led in the scoring chances at 18-15. That's at 5-on-5. Jack Rathbone had himself a nice night. He led all the Canucks in time on ice with 25-45, 3 shots on goal, 9 attempts. Here's Bruce Boudreau on Jack Rathbone's night.
I thought he got better as the game along. He ended up playing 25 minutes and was he started to look a lot more comfortable, out there. So I think it was very positive what I saw from him. Must have been the game plan for him right now. It must be the game plan throughout the preseason. They really got to know what they have in this player, because if he's going to make this big club, he's going to be a lot on his shoulders, really, right? I mean, you can go down to the AHL, you can produce points all you want, but now this is the show. And maybe those points don't come as easily as they did in the minors, so you're going to have to figure out another way to play. By giving him almost 26 minutes in ice time, you're going to get a good sample there.
Yeah, I saw a lot of good in Jack Rathbone, and I'm not surprised at that. I thought he had a decent training camp as well, and we know what he did at the American Hockey League level. It's just that he's got to show a consistency, and this was night 1, and I think he set the bar pretty high if that's what he can deliver. Played with Luke Shen. They played a lot. You mentioned the ice time, 8 minutes of power play ice time for Jack Rathbone on a night where Tyler Myers was in the lineup. Tyler Myers has run power plays in the National Hockey League, but very clearly this coaching staff and management wanted to put Rathbone in that position to be the point man on the power play, to see what he could do. There were a couple of times I thought in the first period he looked off a shot opportunity, tried to pass. Remember once looked like he was a great shot for a wrist shot in the high slot and tried to dish it down low. And I just think when you have a clear look, it's never a bad thing. Also on a power play in the third period, and it was the end of a shift, and he coughed the puck up. Was it Brett Ritchie, I think, that had the shorthanded opportunity? Artur Silovs, who came in relief of Spencer Martin, maybe his best stop. Because at that point, if I'm not mistaken, it was a 2-0 hockey game. If Calgary scores there, it's probably game over. But Silovs made the save. And you can see Rathbone, he knew. You can't make that play. You can't make that mistake. Again, I think he was gassed at the end of a long shift. But overall, I think, the guys that, and you know me, and we'll get to did something later, but I always do something in the preseason. I think Jack Rathbone did. I think he set the bar pretty high for himself, and I think the management group had to be fairly pleased with what they saw from a guy who he wants to be here. There's no doubt. And I think he put his best foot forward here on opening night.
Let's hear a couple of clips from Jack Rathbone. We'll start with just how he felt about his night overall.
Yeah, I think when they a little bit of a vote of confidence from those guys. Hopefully took advantage of it a little bit, but I mean, it's first game, so definitely some rust and hopefully just build on it. There's a ton of skill on that unit. I think it's kind of my job just to distribute there. You got PD on the flank and then G on the other side, so can't really make a bad decision with the puck. I think I got to be a little bit more of a shot mentality when I do get it, but like I said, that comes with time and game reps.
Now, you referenced the Ritchie mistake there, and at first I thought Ritchie picked his pocket, but he really kind of just coughed it up, really. And Ritchie was game, and yeah, that was a fine save by Seeloss. But other than that, I thought Jack Rathbone's game was quite sound. Now, one of the questions that was posed to him, though, was, here you are now, you're in your second training camp, like it's time, right? Like it's time for Jack Rathbone to really seize the moment. And he was asked whether, he's got like an NHL mindset right now going into this year's training camp.
If you don't, then why come to camp? It's I think everyone's goal coming in here is to make the NHL club. I don't think anyone's goal is to just have a good 5 days of fun and skate around a little bit. It's you come here to make the 23-man roster, and I think that was my mindset all summer. And like I said, hopefully we got some exhibition games here to play well and play a little bit more and show them what I can do.
What do you think the hope is for the Canucks for Jack Rathbone? Like second pair guy, you think that, or is that too high for him?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that still has to shake out on defense. Is Quinn Hughes going to start the season on the right side? Is that a thing with OEL? And Hughes and OEL didn't play in either of these games. And I had somebody on Twitter come at me, missed opportunity for all this talk of, Bruce not wanting to waste time and see guy. Like, was this not a chance to, 2 games, wasn't it a chance to get Quinn Hughes some ice time on the right side? Slow the roll. It's opening night of the preseason.
Yeah, and you mentioned to me in the press box that they're not going to send him to Calgary.
No, he wasn't
for
going
that
to
game. But also that texter said, or tweeter said that missed opportunity. I would argue that no, it was an opportunity for Jack Rathbone, and he seized it.
Yeah, and Dan DeKeyser and Jet Wu. Like, management has to see these guys. They know what they've got in Quinn Hughes. Does he need reps on the right side? Yeah, maybe. I thought he looked way better in the Saturday scrimmage than he did earlier in training camp, and he'll be a quick study. But so to your question about Rathbone, I thought he and Shen, like, again, they played a lot and they played through training camp, so they're building a little chemistry there. And we know that, like, it seems any guy that, especially a young guy that gets a chance to play with Luke Shen, loves it. Like, he's going to protect you, obviously.
Yeah.
Solid veteran, and just a true pro through and through. Is that a second pair, though, in the National Hockey League? Dermott and Tucker Poolman. I still think Travis Dermott's in their top 6, and if Dermott's in their top 6, then, by association, Tucker Poolman, as long as he's healthy, and he got through training camp, but he didn't play in this hockey game here in Vancouver, but I need to see him in some game action, obviously, and, so I do think there's still a fair bit that has to shake out on the back end for the Vancouver Canucks.
You talk about Travis Dermott there, you mentioned his name. Is Travis Dermott do we know what he is yet, or do you think there might possibly be another level? I'm
sure the Canucks are hoping that there's still a little bit of room for him to grow.
Because I asked this because it seems like they have a lot of 5 through 8 guys right now, right?
Well, as Craig Button always says, what are the Canucks trying to corner the market on 7th defenseman?
Yeah.
I think that there certainly is depth, and we've touched on this on other pods, that with the number of guys that have NHL games under their belt. Now, Brady Keeper only has a handful, and Brisebois and Noah Juleson, but they've played in the NHL. Like, there is depth, and that to me is, when the injuries inevitably hit on the back end, who's going to step in, who's going to step up. I thought Wyatt Kalynuk actually quietly had a decent game. We're not going to spend a ton of time talking about him, but he had that heavy shot in the first period. He blew Dustin Wolf's mask off.
That's right.
And then also in the third period, after there was the Rathbone giveaway to Ritchie, we talked about play went up ice. Silovs made the save, and Kalynuk actually stepped into a pretty heavy slap shot. Guy looks like he can fire the puck. Another guy that's played in the National Hockey League. So there is some depth there, and we'll see it now. And the Canucks don't play again here in the preseason until Thursday. Monday's a full team day off. They had 3 hard days of training camp, and then 40 guys are playing either in Calgary or here in Vancouver. So Monday, well-deserved day off. Guys can just sort of exhale, Management can put its head together. There's some talk that we may see the first round of cuts. Patrick Allvin had mentioned that in Whistler. Bruce Boudreau thought that might be the case, although he said we can change our minds. So, we'll see what Monday brings, but Monday will be a day off for the players. There are no days off in the preseason for management, and there are decisions that have to be made here.
Kalanick, 16:25 of ice time and had 2 shots on 7 attempts. Also had a block shot, a 1 hit, and a giveaway in that game. But I think you're right. Like, if you're not saying anything about him, it's probably a good thing in terms of at least no negative side or thoughts towards Kalanick. But what about Jet Wu, though? Because this is a guy that, and we haven't asked J-Pat here. This is from Colin in Planning. And he wants to know, did you notice Jet Wu in this game? First time I noticed him, he says, is in overtime. Not sure if that's good or bad or just meh at this point.
Well, I'm certainly a little surprised that Jet Wu got a shift in overtime. And that was before Podkolzin took his penalty. So they had other options, and they gave Jet Wu an opportunity to skate 3-on-3. Did I notice him? I'll tell you where I noticed him. And I saw some people giving Will Lockwood some flack for taking the penalty on the back post in the second period. That whole sequence, Lockwood is chasing there on the back check because Wu got caught. He had a bad pinch at the Calgary line, and the Flames broke out, and off they went and created a pretty good scoring chance, and Will Lockwood had to take a penalty at the back post. So I noticed him there. I know Bruce Boudreau said that post-game he had talked briefly to Patrick Allvin, and they liked what they saw from Wu. He played, for the most part, at evens with Wyatt Kalanick. That was kind of the third pairing in this hockey game. There was another sequence in his defensive zone, though, where he had time and I thought made a really weak clearing attempt. And at this level, like, you can't. Like, the game is so fast that you're not generally going to have the time that he did in this moment. Mm-hmm. And he didn't make a great play with the puck. So, I can't sit here and glow about Jet Wu the way that I could about Jack Rathbone. I thought Rathbone, hands down, had a much better night. And if we're going to get into comparisons here, let's take a sec. And these guys that are battling on the left side, like Jack Rathbone and Dan DeKeyser, were in this game. They didn't play together, but one of the reasons Quinn Hughes didn't play is because management has to take a look. Dan DeKeyser's on a PTO. Time is ticking. They need to know if this guy can still play in the National Hockey League. I didn't think it was a great night for him. Speed of the game looks like it might be an issue. Again, there was a ton of penalty killing. That was an area that he stepped in, and I guess if that's an area of the game that maybe he would be able to help if he's going to earn a contract. But, one game down, who knows how many more that he's going to get. And Bruce Boudreau didn't exactly have glowing praise, I didn't think, after the game when he was asked about Dan DeKeyser.
Yeah, 547 career games played, but the head coach thought he looked a little nervous out there.
I don't care how many years you play in the league. He looked a little nervous, a little bit to me. It's the first time I'm sure he's ever been on a PTO. So, but he's a big body, and again, I think he got a little bit smoother after the first period. I thought the first period, even though we competed, I thought they held the play, 2/3 of the time.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going too far out on a limb here, but I feel like Danny DeKeyser is going to play a fair share of games for the Canucks this year. I think he's going to be in the rotation. I don't think he'll be a top 6 guy.
You think he's getting a contract
on opening night? I think they're going to give him a contract. Yeah, because I think he'll sign for probably a league minimum.
I need to see more than I did tonight.
It's just, to me, it just looks like the pedigree and the amount of games that he's played, the size. It feels like it's just one of those guys that they're going to want to have in their back pocket. I don't think he's going to be an opening night guy. I don't think he's going to be a mainstay here, but I get the feeling that they'll probably be able to get him on a league minimum, and hopefully he can contribute in Abbotsford. And then
I'm pushing back, man.
Yeah.
I need to see more. I'm not going to say.
Don't get me wrong. I don't think he's playing his way into it. I just think that they look at him and look at his and go, this is a guy that maybe we can depend on him from time to time.
And again, it's one night, and he's come through a training camp, and I'm not writing the book on Dan DeKeyser and his time in Vancouver based on what I saw, but Bruce Boudreau there said he looked nervous, which you wouldn't expect for a veteran, but whatever, new surroundings, fair enough.
And the PTO.
Cut him a little bit of slack on that.
Yeah.
But then in a different answer, there was a follow-up question, and he said, I didn't think that Myers and DeKeyser played all that well.
Yeah.
So Bruce, and I get this in the preseason, Bruce deferred. He was asked, rapid fire about this guy and that guy. What do you think of Lockwood? And what do you think? And his refrain, and it makes perfect sense, is, I got to go watch the tape. But, a lot of these guys, Bruce hasn't I mean, he's seen them through training camp, but he hasn't seen them in game action himself at this level. So totally understand if he needs a night to go and watch the game again. You wonder, is he going to have time to watch all 3 periods of the game out of Calgary? Does he want to? It doesn't sound like it was, they didn't send a particularly strong team, obviously. So they'd have eyes on that game at the Saddle Dome that would report back. But I do wonder, like, does management watch like the full video to make assessments, or do they just rely on the people that travel there to, maybe Jerry call it and gives them some sort of report, whatever the case. They file that one away. I think they're more concerned with the battles for jobs in the game that was played here in Vancouver.
All right, let's get to Andrei Kuzmenko, who makes his Canucks debut here. I thought he was okay. There was a few moments where, and we're going to hear from Bruce Boudreau on his thoughts on Kuzmenko. There was one moment in particular, and you and I spoke about it after it happened while we were up in the press box, where he ripped a shot, and you could see that shot's heavy, and it gets off quick. But he had Petey right behind him and it would have opened up a seam for a drop pass, and he didn't see it there. So that was the one sort of mistake I thought I saw there, but I wasn't overwhelmed by Kuzmenko. I just thought he was okay.
Liked his first shift of the hockey game, if you remember. A quick up from Luke Schenn to Elias Pettersson, and he snaps it across to Kuzmenko, and pretty good wrist shot. And then in that same sequence, he drew a penalty. Kind of started a trend for the night. There was the parade to the penalty box, but Kuzmenko drew the first penalty of the night. And when I look at my notes, and I just kind of make notes of things that jump out at me as the game unfolds, his name is on my sheet here. Second period, backdoor, just missed on a pass from Elias Pettersson when the game was 1-0. Early in the third period, long stretch pass from Jet Wu to Kuzmenko off the rush up the right side and got a decent look there. So, there were some moments, but I think it's really interesting. So he plays 18 minutes and 43 seconds in the hockey game. He has 3 shots on goal, 4 attempts on the night. But remember last week, Bruce Boudreau, when he was asked, what are you going to look for from Kuzmenko? And he said, shift length. And wouldn't you know it, Andrei Kuzmenko had the longest average shift length of any Canuck forward at 59 seconds. Like comparatively, Bo Horvat, I think, was at 49. Garland was in that area. I think Pettersson was in the high 50s as well. But this is one of those things that, you wonder from the KHL, like, are there some bad habits there of guys that stay out? Like at the NHL level, you want guys going 45 seconds and get off the ice, give me your best 45 and get off and let somebody else that has fresh legs. And, you don't want to get trapped out there and then have to defend when you're tired and those types of things. So, we can all be wowed by the shot, and it's big time. It's NHL. We saw it at training camp, saw it at times in this hockey game. But just be mindful of his defensive play, especially if he gets worn down. And I think Bruce's answer was quite fascinating. So often, what a coach says is one thing, what he doesn't say is another. And Bruce was asked what he thought of Kuzmenko's night.
He can shoot the puck. We see a lot of good things in him. I think it's an adjustment for him, like he's looking at it and the size and the physicality. And let's see him after the 6th preseason game before you ask me that question.
But there you go. I mean, just what we said. When the coach is asked and the first thing he says is, well, he can shoot the puck. I think he left a fair bit unsaid in that answer.
But those are the things I think that you expect from somebody, especially somebody that was a star in the KHL, to have to improve upon in the NHL, is the fact that, you can't be out there. You're essentially a rookie here. You are a rookie in the NHL right now. So you got to watch your ice time and, the defensive game, of course. But again, first game of preseason, and I agree with the coach there. Ask me again after game 6, right? But there were some positives that we saw from Kuzmenko, and that shot is big league. All right, Conor Garland, 1 goal, 1 assist. Talked about just building some chemistry on a line with Bo Horvat.
I think it's going great. I mean, me and Bo talked in the summer, about if we had a chance to play together and what we do, and that's something I talked about last season about having a full summer talking to guys like that, and that's been awesome. So, and now pods as well, just talking about angles and plays. Where soft spots are and stuff. And, when you have chemistry with guys that I feel like I do with Bo right now, sometimes you don't have to look. It's easy games. But his strength is, he's just such a powerful player. He's two-way, wins a lot of offensive zone draws that as wingers you love playing with centers that win a lot of draws.
Now, not really the best night to evaluate what Garland's like on the left side because there was some movement around, and then of course they lose a forward, so everything gets all mixed up into a blender at that point. But the goal that he did score was on the left side, and boy, it was classic Conor Garland.
Yeah, and classic Elias Pettersson with the feed through the slot, through traffic, and there was Garland first chance stopped, and then stuck with it and was able to bang it home with 91 seconds to go, tied the game. I don't know that we needed bonus hockey on opening night. I was worried that we were going to get a shootout, but we were spared that by a Michael Stone power play goal, something that you probably won't see in overtime, by the way.
Not a bad goal, though.
No, Flames zipped it around as well. Matthew Phillips, kid that played his junior hockey over in Victoria. He's a little guy, 5'8". Like, I think he has to look up at Conor Garland, but noticed him. He was around the puck a fair bit in this hockey game. It was funny because the Flames had 5'8" Matthew Phillips, and they had 6'8" Adam Klepka, and noticed him as well.
Well, of course you did. He got in a scrap.
With Vinny Arsenault. I don't know how many fights he's been in organized hockey from the Czechia, I guess it is now. But we talked about him at Young Stars because the guy's a monster, and answered the bell there. But just going back to Conor Garland, this is a guy that, I think by his own standards, but we certainly had him in the rink-wide penalty box on occasion last year. There were too many stretches there. He had that 20-game stretch where he didn't score. I think it's great. I think it's, on this line with Horvat and Podkolzin, I'm still trying to figure out how that's going to look when they get going, but Garland figures in both of the Canucks goals, so for him, that's a nice start to the preseason, and he's got to be 20-plus. For what he's paid and the way that he has certainly solidified a top 9, and he may work his way into the top 6 at some point here. We'll see about second unit power play. Of course, barely any production on the power play last year, so that's an area that maybe he can contribute. Tonight was getting a chance, not just on the first unit, but also doing some penalty killing, something that he doesn't normally do. So, you see that in the preseason. Guys are thrown into some roles, and with Mikheyev out of the lineup. But it was a Conor Garland night. We saw some spins, saw some things, trying to make things happen, and I like the fact that Bruce got aggressive there with the goal he pulled. Silov's out with about 2 minutes to go. 5 forwards, and just Jack Rathbone is the only defenseman. So they went with a 5-forward, 1 defenseman set, and it worked out because they got the puck. Pettersson, he found Garland in the back door. Kuzmenko did get an assist there, second assist on the goal, but a point. So it's on the score sheet for him at the very least. But a decent night for Garland. I don't know that he was the best forward. I do think that Vasily Podkolzin probably was start to finish.
Yeah.
But all things considered. Oh, and by the way, Bo Horvat took 34 faceoffs in this hockey game. No other Canuck took more than 11. And that just that wasn't by design. It's just that he's out there for every power play. He's out there for every penalty kill, and some at evens as well. Went 17 for 34. So 50% in the faceoff. That's a slow night at the office for Bo Horvat, but he's not in midseason form there. And he was all right. I mean, he's the captain. He's always going to be all right. But as that line continues to work through things and build on things through training camp and now through a game in the preseason, probably the most effective line for the Vancouver Canucks in this hockey game.
And you talk about the penalty killing there for Conor Garland. 4 minutes and 8 seconds.
Yeah.
This is good. I mean, at this point of the year, you might as well try out guys, right? Because you want to see what you got.
Well, so. and your hand was forced with Mikheyev out. So.
Yeah. But you know that from time to time, maybe you might have to play that card, get Garland out there. Okay, lastly, before we hear from Coach who will put a bow on this game for us, Will Lockwood. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm sold on. There hasn't been a moment yet for me when Will Lockwood has played for the Vancouver Canucks that I thought, yeah, this guy's a player. I mean, he got lit up by Gilbert at one point in the game too, but he just, I don't know, for as much as the fans sort of want him to be something, I don't know if he's going to be.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that it was a fairly disappointing night for him on that line with Sheldon Dries and PDG, Phil DiGiuseppe. And I didn't think it was a great night for any of those guys. Now, I don't know where my expectations were, but of those three, and PDG had the great training camp last year, and we all kind of thought he was going to make the team out of training camp. It didn't happen for him. Kind of know what Sheldon Dries is at the AHL level, a bit of a tweener, but had a look last year with the big league team. And I'm with you. Like, I watched Lockwood pretty closely, and Whistler didn't jump out. Certainly no separation. This is a guy that is known for his wheels, but also sort of that tenacity, and I didn't see a ton of that.
And for a guy that's supposed to hit a lot, like, he's not big at all.
No. And we've said, like, his path to being a regular is probably to carve out a niche as a penalty killer. Well, he got an opportunity to do some of that in this hockey game when you look at the numbers. 4 minutes and 7 seconds of shorthanded time. But yeah, I just didn't think there was, and there certainly hasn't been any kind of bottom line. Doesn't have a point in the games that he's played, limited games that he's played in the National Hockey League. But yeah, I would say that he's sort of put himself a step behind others here, and it's going to be an uphill climb for him.
7:07 of ice time at 5-on-5 for Will Lockwood, and you talk about PDG as well, 6:45. I mean, you could see sort of the way that this is staggered in terms of the time on ice, who they think is going to be in consideration for this big club.
Sure, but there just wasn't much 5-on-5 ice time.
That is true.
Because
they're
of
right
the
about
penalties
that.
both ways.
All right, let's hear from the head coach as he gives his thoughts on the game.
We never quit. I mean, it would have been pretty easy. I mean, they had 7 power plays, I think, so it's but kept pushing through, especially when we lost a player, with 11 forwards. It gets a little more difficult when you're killing a lot of penalties, but I thought the never quit thing is an important thing with us. It was last year. I think it will be this year.
And I think that's a characteristic of a Bruce Boudreau coach team, at least with this Vancouver Canucks team.
Dog on a bone, no quit. It would be nice if that storyline, though, of falling behind would go away.
Yeah, that's true.
Again, it's preseason. I'm not going to freak out. And we talked about the second goal was a bit of a dog's breakfast. But the first one, Mikheyev turns the puck over in the neutral zone. I think there was a bit of a botched line change, or the middle of a line change, because when you look at who was on the ice for the Canucks, just according to the game sheet, it wasn't like a line and a defensive pairing. It was Kalynuk. It was Carson Folk. It was Tyler Myers. Myers and Kalynuk didn't play together in this hockey game. Mikheyev was out there, and then Podkolzin as well. So I think, as I recall, pucks in the neutral zone, I think the Canucks were thinking they were going to get a change in, then all of a sudden there's a scramble, and people can say, oh, it's Tyler Myers. He wasn't back in time. But, Mikheyev's got to win the battle, and that just shows you the importance. In the neutral zone, you can't turn the puck over, even in a preseason game like this one, or Mitch McLean is going to make you pay.
Yeah, Mitch McLean just parting the seas there. He makes it work for him. But, I thought that was an odd goal as well. I didn't know where Myers was coming. I'd have to go back and look at it again, but I didn't know where Myers was coming from there, because McLean was easily right in the middle of the slot there. Rink Wide is presented, that is, by Bodog. From sports odds to free casino games, make a play at bodog.net. All right, I do like this time of the show. This is where we get into some of these Ask J-Pats that we have coming into the Great Clips inbox. You can always text us your Ask J-Pats at 778-402-9680, or hit us up on Twitter as well. We always do them on Twitter at Rinkwide Podcast. This one comes from Ernest. I love Ernest's questions. Always sends us good ones. Bruce Boudreau only found one forward line that was 70, 90, and 6 that had consistent chemistry last season. Should fans worry if they don't find any more chemistry in other lines by the 10-game mark this season?
It's early to be worrying about worrying. And Conor Garland talked about the fact that he thinks that there is some chemistry forming on that line with Podkolzin and Horvat. My sense is that Bruce is going to do everything he can to keep those lines together, but some things are out of his hands. And it's not just Mikheyev, but Brock Besser. And I asked Bruce, after the game, I said, Bruce, I know that Brock wasn't supposed to play in either of these games tonight, but he was held out of the Saturday scrimmage in Whistler for precautionary reasons. Is he going to be, or do you expect to have him back on the practice ice on Tuesday? And really got a non-answer from the coach. And
he flushed your question real quick.
Right. And again, tomorrow a full day off, so there won't be anybody unless Besser's at the rink, testing something. But, this is the problem with Brock Besser, is that I don't know that he gets the benefit of the doubt, because if you recall, last year, it happened in exhibition action. This happened at Whistler over the weekend. But last year in the preseason was day-to-day with something that became week-to-week and missed the first, I think, 4 or 5 games of the season. And it went from day-to-day to, a couple of weeks in a hurry.
Yeah.
And you just with the contract and the excitement around him and the 30 goals and all that kind of stuff. And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I just thought, try to read between the lines of Bruce's answer. It was a pretty simple question. You expect him back on the practice ice on Tuesday, and it certainly wasn't a yes.
Boy.
It wasn't a yes. So, and with Mikheyev, he just said, hadn't talked to the doctor, so he didn't know. Let's hope. I mean, for his sake and for the team's sake. You don't want an injury on opening night of the preseason.
Yeah, the Canucks said they could not afford to be down Besser and Mikheyev to start the year. Again, we want to get out on the right foot, as we saw. I don't want to be trying to get into the playoffs again this year. All right, we also have another Ask J-Pat here. This one's in the Great Clips inbox. This is from Jacob. Might be getting ahead of himself, but goal of the year candidate already for Pods? Was that one nicer than Garland's goal? I mean, I like the deke, but the how he scored it was kind of like just shoveled it right in there, right?
Got a stick handle right into the net.
Sort of, yeah.
I'm not sure that I want to be Kevin Rooney when they use some film work.
Yes.
And Kevin Rooney's an NHL player, but man, that looked like a minor league defensive effort on his part. And credit to Pods. I mean, that looked like a confident dude taking the puck to the net and, serve it up. I want to see more of that. So, yes, based on what we've seen and the fact that the Calgary team, the team in Calgary didn't score a goal, I'll play along. I'll go with Pods as the goal of the year so far.
All right, and this one's just a funny one. This is from @G92Nuck. Wants to know if, he says, are we sure these two aren't related? You and I are putting a lot of video out lately. I always want to make something clear to people. If you have red hair, it doesn't mean you're related to the person that has red hair as well, right? So we are not related.
We are not.
All right.
I have a birth certificate that will prove
We can prove
that.
it.
Yes.
That's right. All right, J-Pat, tell us tonight who did something.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of candidates. Jack Rathbone, a strong one, but I'm going to go with Vasily Podkolzin. I just thought a really eventful night overall. I love the fact that they got him up over 20 minutes of ice time, 4 shots on goal, 7 attempts, 5 hits. He scored his goal. We talked about the collision with Dennis Gilbert as well. Looked confident as the night went along and taking a puck to the net. This is a big, strong guy. And I think as he continues to find his way in the National Hockey League, that we'll see more of that. Maybe not stick handling right into the opposition net. But, yeah, for my money, again, Jack Rathbone, honorable mention, certainly, and I thought it was a good night for him. But I'm going Vasily Podkolzin. He was my did-something guy.
I did like what I saw from Arthur Seeloffs as well. I know it was a small sample, and I know he's not going to get did something for that, but
guy was busy.
There's something there for me. I think he's going to be a player.
Well, I mean, Calgary had the only 6 shots of overtime. Canucks didn't have an overtime. Now, obviously, the Flames went to work on the power play, but the power play came late. The delayed penalty was in effect, and there's no benefit at that point. You get the delayed penalty, you get your goaltender out for an extra attacker. It's 4-on-3 at that point, and it would have been a 4-on-3 power play had they just turned the puck over to the Canucks. So, anyways, they ended up scoring the power play, but the shots on the night, 45-28. So both Canuck goaltenders, and we talked about that second goal. Yeah, it looked ugly, but really the result of a bad bounce more than anything. But Seeloffs, in limited action, was solid and made a couple of spectacular saves, most notably the one off Ritchie, shorthanded.
Also had that nice save off Jacob Pelche on the doorstep, robbed by the left pad of Seeloffs there. All right. What do you got for your takeaways tonight?
I think the biggest takeaway is that this game is what it was. It was for evaluation purposes, as all these preseason games are. And so while people may look at who wasn't in the lineup, it was way more about who was. And there's a method to the madness in the way that the coaching staff goes about filling out a roster, and they wanted to see Dan DeKeyser and get a look at him in NHL action paired with Tyler Myers. They wanted to see Jack Rathbone and have him run a power play. They wanted to see Jet Wu and what would he look like in a third pairing role, because if he somehow has a breakout season that makes the NHL, that's kind of probably his ceiling, is in a third role capacity. So, I think there was a lot to look at on the defensive side of things, and then up front, they dressed a much stronger lineup here in Vancouver compared to the team that they sent to Calgary. That's not by design, or that is by design, rather. It's not a surprise. You've got season ticket holders and ticket holders in general that are paying money to go watch the product. You want to put some of your best players out there. So Besser wasn't available. Miller and Pearson, they didn't play, but the fans here got a first look at Kuzmenko and a short, brief look, unfortunately, at Ilya Mikheyev. But, Pettersson played and Horvat played and Garland. And so, on that level, the Canucks had far more NHL talent than the Calgary Flames in their lineup in Vancouver. So a loss is disappointing, but there weren't points in the standings up for grabs. Ultimately, the results don't matter nearly as much as the evaluation process does on a night like this one. So I liked Podkolzin. I liked Rathbone. Thought it was a strong start to the season for a guy like Conor Garland. And one of my sort of small takeaways is, and without JT Miller in the lineup, Elias Pettersson had an A on. And again, it's an exhibition game, and that's all it is. But I think it is a nod to his increasing role and importance and the organization understanding what this guy means. And he had some PD shifts. I'm not sure that he was dialed in, but if this is his jumping on point, remember, he didn't even get to camp last year until there was a couple of games left in the preseason. So he's already ahead of the curve in that regard. He had a strong camp in Whistler, and there were some moments, including the setup to Garland, for the tying goal. So no quit in the Canucks. Take that for what it's worth on opening night of the preseason. A lot of penalties, too many penalties both ways, but hey, it gave the coaching staffs on both sides a chance to look at their special teams, both the power plays and the penalty killers. So I think this was a night to assess individuals more than it was the overall team. Yeah. We're still weeks away from the Canucks having to set an opening night roster. So, I think the outcome, ultimately, you try to win, you play to win. It didn't happen for the Vancouver Canucks, but overall, it was just good to be back in the rink and to have hockey here in town again.
Yeah, full day off for the Canucks on Monday. They'll be back on the ice in terms of another preseason game on Thursday versus the Seattle Kraken at Rogers Arena. We'll have a pregame for you that'll be available exclusively on YouTube. That's right. That'll be the first pregame. So be sure to head over to our YouTube page, Rinkwide Podcast, and subscribe to the page, of course, and then you'll get in those pre-games for you. We'll be doing our first one on Thursday, and of course, you can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms
and you can decide for yourself if we look like we're related.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I'll dye my hair, and we'll see if people... Yeah? What do you think?
It's not a bad idea, a little separation. But you've probably seen, last year, first year of Rinkwide, it was almost exclusively an audio property. But, hey, we're branching out. We're evolving.
Yeah, and we'll have some cool stuff on
building.
that. Yeah.
And we did some video up in Penticton. There was some video over the weekend. Actually, that was a spectacular video from Whistler with the backdrop. And
but I got to give you credit, though, because we were scrambling trying to find this nice backdrop. And, it's Whistler. Yeah. Right? I mean, how can you not find a nice backdrop in Whistler? Then you're like, hey, why don't we just go to this field? And booyah, right there, Whistler Mountain and all its glory right behind us. So well done on your part, Jay Pat. You were doing something that day as well. But we'll be doing something throughout the week as well. So stay tuned on your favorite podcast platform. We'll be popping up there for you. And then, of course, Thursday with the pregame, postgame, and as we do every game here on Rinkwide Vancouver. For Jay Pat, I'm Wadden. Remember, Rinkwide is the show that always scores.